There we go, and we're back. So just to recap, the tone of these tabs can be set by the flute buttons down here, and you have three very quick ones. Is by not having them on at all, you're on the red Lowrey setting. Press tibia, they go yellow, you're on the tibia setting, which is more theatre-y or classical, if you take the tremolo off. Jazz, which is more Hammondy. To get the additional ones, we press the two buttons together.
Yep.
And it says little word there, more. So the same way we press that button to get more on the screen. We press the two buttons to get more up here. And we see the three that we've already played, Lowrey, tibia and jazz, but we then have three additional ones, smooth, diapason and string. And actually probably the diapason actually is more classical than the tibia one. The tibia one is more associated with theatre organ. But we're not changing anything else about the organ apart from the tone of these tabs. Incidentally, that does the lower as well.
Right.
So it's changing the tone of the lower tabs as well.
Yes.
So you see their lights change at the same time as the other lights. So there are flute tabs. At the end of the list there's the flute percussion tab, which is a Hammond throwback, which is a flute tab that doesn't stay on. Basically it decays away, which is why they call it percussion tab. Used when you're playing the more of the jazzy Hammond sound to give a click to the notes. So it gives that.
Just so, whilst I remember, you made a point that it gives you more of a staccato sound.
Yeah.
Do you have any idiot's guide to remind people of some of these points on how to effectively improve the registration that you're trying to select? Because one might forget that after a while.
What the idea of adding the flute percussion?
Yes, I mean there must be a whole lot of useful tips that could be put on 3 or 4 pages of A4.
Well, I mean, we try and cover them on the hints and tips. The difficulty is actually with the whole thing about showing somebody about an organ, is that there's the practical sense of me showing you and telling you what these buttons do, which is showing you how to work the organ. Yes. There is the much bigger thing, which is generally how to play the organ. Yes. And playing the organ involves registrations and how to use this and why you would put this on that. It's rather like, you can show somebody how to bake a cake and the mechanics of how to do it. The actual subtleties of why you put in that much salt and why you use this kind of flour and why you beat that, that's actually a general question about how do you cook. And so it's difficult to establish where a dividing line is because things like that apply to all organs. Right. That's been around since you had your Hammond. Yes. And so it's difficult. So we could sit and talk for weeks about processes and setting an organ up and all the background of how these tabs are and where you would use this and that. Same as the instruction manual could, but of course it would be a course on how to play the organ. So it's a bit difficult. We try and include why you would use a bit and so forth. But we would end up talking far too long if it was trying to cover all of
I just think that could be a very useful tab to use.
And also, it's this thing I said right at the very beginning, is that we don't know how much you know about playing, so we try and, obviously with the organ, show you from scratch on how to work it, because we then don't miss anything out. But in terms of your personal experience of what sounds go with what, it's very difficult without spending weeks and weeks with you. And that's where organ lessons come in, essentially. Right. Is when I used to teach, I used to spend more of my time talking about those kind of things than actually the notes. But that's a tab that adds a click and a decay sound to give a bit of variation to the organ sound. And when Hammond first introduced that, everyone got very excited. On the old-fashioned tone wheel things, actually trying to make it so it decayed away was actually quite a challenge. So that was a big deal back then. On the other side of that, really, you've got sustain, which does the opposite. It makes the notes hang on. So there's an upper flute sustain that actually only applies to these tabs.
Yes. It doesn't apply to the strings.
Lots of strings, they have their own one.
Oh yes.
So they have their own string sustain, and the lower flutes they have their own sustain, and the lower strings have their own sustain. They all have their own sustain. And actually, this tab relies upon something that a lot of people. Well, it has kind of been left behind a bit, but one of the options that this screen has is a thing called a keypad.
Yes.
You've seen that come up.
Yep.
And you think, oh, why do I need to type a number in? Well, it means you can actually adjust that sustain length if you want to.
Okay.
So you can type in 99, hit that tab, and that's now gone to 99, which means it'll be very long.
I know the keypad you can use with a Genius button.
Yep.
So how do you get it going for the...
Well, the key thing is you type in the number.
No, how do you get it going for the sustain?
That's what I'm saying. The key thing is you type in the number,
yes.
you just tell the organ where to put it. If you're using it to do a Genius voice,
yes.
you then would press a Genius button. If you're using it to set the sustain, you press the sustain. So you generate the number, and then you tell the organ where to put it.
But you can also go on to get the style if you're on the Genius too. So you want an oboe.
Hmm?
The way I was doing it before, I think I pressed Genius, and then the keypad, and then say maybe alphabet or the number.
Yeah, if you remember the number of the sound, 105.
Which I didn't. So it's in reality it was pressing the alphabet.
But it's the same keypad. You're just pushing the number into a different place. So all I'm doing is using the keypad to push the number into there.
Right. And is that, if you turn the organ off and on again, does that default to that?
That defaults to a standard setting, yeah. Or if you press reset.
You turn it off and it comes back, not as you set it, to original factory setting.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
So we have our tabs. A bit further along we have our string tabs.
Right.
These are an interesting one. This is actually throwback again to the 70s really, when Lowrey introduced a section they called symphonic strings. And that's back in the days when everything was still what we called analog, so the sounds are made up, they're not real sounds. There's somebody with a load of circuit boards and components saying, oh, that sounds a bit stringy, we'll call that the string section. And so these really don't really sound like a Mantovani strings or orchestral strings like you find on the clavinova. They're not designed to. They're actually reproducing that sound from the 70s because a lot of people still like that sound to mix in with their organ sound.
Yeah.
So that's why they're there. They don't sound very much like the proper sounds that they've, but they are. That's why they're pitched, because they're actually pitched the same way as the organ flutes. Right. And again, they have their own sustain, and we have a couple of them for the lower manual as well. So, when your question is asking about adding sounds to lower manuals, at the moment we've got 2 tabs on there. We could put strings on with those as well. A rather unusual circumstance there, but the flutes don't have any sustain, but the strings do. You could have both with sustain, and they could be quite a nice little just backing. We'll just finish off with the rest of the tabs. We'll come back to that one.
What's that one?
Upper Genius.
Oh, yeah.
And
the next one I can't see it.
The vocal one again is a bit of a throwback to the 70s. It's just a vocally type sound. These ones are kind of ones that Lowrey have always had, so they've left them there to keep the purists happy.
Right.
Further around, we have some additional tab stops, which are based around theatre or pipe voicing. And so, if I just turn all these off, so we've got no sound. We've got a reed stop and a diapason. They also have a theatre tremolant on them at the moment. Take that off. They become straight, rather like taking the tremolant off the flute tabs. So they're actually more classical now. Now they actually put a lot more of these theatre stroke pipe stops in, but they didn't have space for lots and lots of tabs.
Right.
So they gave us a tab on the end here called Theatre Genius.
Yes.
If you hit that one, you're then given additional theatre stroke pipe stops that you can scroll through with the scroll key, and they come up there on that left hand side of the screen and go through them there now. So all these additional sounds are available from that one tab. So say you like that setting. You can mix that in with the stops here. Or going the other way around, if you had a classical sound here and you wanted to add a bit of spice to it, you can add.
There's no way of getting the individual instruments coming up in, say, a block of 5 or 10, and you can scroll through a page at a time, rather than doing it individually.
Unfortunately, they're individual. So you hit this Theatre Genius tab, and then you can scroll through them.
And I had noticed that if you hold it down, it doesn't. It goes at a certain speed. You can't get it to whiz
Doesn't
through.
whiz, no. Larry felt that when it whizzed, a lot of their more elderly customers it went before they'd even realised it was moving. So they kind of set the scroll speed.
A bit like with the Sky remote.
Yeah.
Cut out the adverts, I go to 6 or 12, or even faster, to get rid of the adverts. But there's no such facility here at all.
We'll come to that.
Ah.
We don't have a facility like that on this Genius tab,
Okay.
because essentially actually it's not a very big list. There's only about 32 in it.
Ah, yes.
And so it doesn't take too long to.
But certainly going
to whiz
for
through
on the
them.
Genius for other ones.
Yeah,
I'm ahead of myself, am I?
Yeah. So yes, there's only about 32 in that one, so you can actually get through that list quite quickly.
That's very clever.
And that little bank there is duplicated there for the lower manual. You've got Tarpe's and Boxing Minor and the Theatre Genius there for the lower manual, so you can actually choose one of these stops for the lower manual as well. So essentially, so far we've been dealing basically with organ type sounds, be it jazz organ, pipe organ, theatre organ, and then with the associated stops that will go with them, be it 70s string sounds or proper pipe and theatre stops, with or without tremolo over there. The next section of the organ is a section of sounds which are made in a very different way. As I was saying, these are essentially what we call analogue sounds. They've been sounds that have been made up. Of course, modern technology nowadays uses a process called sampling or digital voicing. Actually, these are all digital anyway, but they are still made up.
Yes.
The reason why they make them up actually is that when you actually take something like the sound of a Lowrey organ, what do you record it from? It's quite simple when you say you're going to record a piano, you get a piano, but trying to capture an organ sound is much more difficult. So it's easier for them to make that up, and essentially that's what Lowrey has been doing for 100 years anyway, is making up their own organ sounds. So they didn't need to sample those. But when you come to things like strings and trumpets and pianos and things, you need the realism of recording the sound, which is what the clavinova uses.
Yeah.
So that comes from a very different section in the organ. In fact, they call it the Genius section in the organ. And there was a little bit of a muddle, as it were, that the Prestige had got Lowrey into, because Lowrey, for all their different models, have always liked to keep continuity so that people were familiar from one organ to the next. However, of course, the organs have been able to do more and more each time another generation has come along. So originally, for example, the organ had facility for about 16 of these sampled voices of piano, trumpet and so forth. So it's quite good, you just had 16 buttons and each one had a sound on it. But of course, as technology's moved on, they have space to do 100 of these voices or 200 of these voices. And you had this problem that you suddenly had, well, I can't have 200 buttons on the panel, that's ridiculous. And Yamaha kind of has an easier system of this, because they said, okay, well, let's just start again, and you press piano and you're given a choice of pianos, which I must admit is a very, very sensible system. Lowrey, because they were trying to keep the backwards compatibility with the people existing, ended up with this big long genius list that, as you said, is a bit frustrating to try and keep scrolling up and down it to find all the voices. It would be much easier if you just go to piano, or just like you do on the Yamaha. It seems common sense. As I say, Lowrey understood that it was common sense, but they were kind of back down this blind alley by having to keep the backwards compatibility. So this organ represents actually probably the biggest change in the way that the genius sounds are selected that they've had for a very long time. And essentially what they've done actually is done away first of all with having any of the buttons on the panel. So the first 16 sounds, the one that said piano, harpsichord, trumpet and whatever, have gone. Because essentially nobody ever pressed them. Because all of the new exciting voices you found in the genius list. So they've got rid of them, so you don't actually see a button up there that says piano anymore. What we have been left with though are access to this genius bank. So if you imagine like a bank of voices in the organ called the genius bank, and we've got access to 4 of them via these buttons here. 2 is what they call orchestral, which traditionally means they're polyphonic. You can play chords with them, and 2 of which will be solo and monophonic.
Just stopping here. With the other one, if I wanted a flute, I just pressed the button. But here, you seem to have got less buttons.
I was just saying, they've taken away the button that says flute.
So does that slow down your use?
Yes and no. It slows down the process that we had immediately where you press flute and you got a flute. The problem is that if you didn't like that flute, the process to then find all the alternative flutes was quite long-winded.
Yes.
So what they've done is they've got rid of the shortcut to the flute one choice and speeded up the choice to many flutes. And so what we have to begin with, let's do the red ones first, is 2 orchestral genius buttons. Each one can have a different sound in it, and this screen up here tells us the sound that's in each button. So number 1 at the moment is harmonica, or harmonica blues, and number 2 is bells.
And so presumably the French horn is on the right
that
hand.
one, and the whistle is on that one.
Yeah.
So if I put one of these on, let's put on harmonica. We don't hear a harmonica. What we hear at the moment are all the tabs that we've still got on. So I'm just going to turn those off for the time being, so we can hear the harmonica. In fact, we still don't hear the harmonica, because we need to tell the organ where we want to play it. And this was your question about splitting the lower manual and putting things onto the left hand. So if I tell it I want to play it on the upper manual, it comes up here. I'm just going to cancel the lower tabs as well, so we're starting from scratch there as well. If I press lower left, it comes on the lower manual.
Well, when it says lower left, why not? Because you've got no split, is it?
At the moment there's no split, so it's working over the whole of the left hand.
So if you put in lower right, it's the same, is it?
It's a split now.
Oh, I see. So lower left doesn't mean lower left, it means lower left or with no split, the whole keyboard.
The whole keyboard, yes.
Right.
There is a reason for that, because you can actually split the lower keyboard a second way from the solo section, you see.
Yes.
And so if I put the harmonica on, that's great, it's over the whole keyboard. But if I split by putting a solo voice in the lower manual, the harmonica is now only in the left hand side. So that's why there's that little bit of a distinction. You'd think that would just say lower.
Oh, I see. I'm with it now.
So when we choose that harmonica voice, we can play it on the upper, the whole of the lower manual if there's no split on, or just in the split. So it's not down there. And it can actually be on both at the same time. can have both of these buttons on.
Yes. It's good. Let's turn up the heating a bit. I'm a little bit cold. Yes, is it? Right.
Check my email. There's so many spam emails at the moment.
Oh, I didn't know.
So the harmonica's on the upper and the lower.
Now, if I remember rightly, on the Atelier one, they had a bank of buttons, but you could only have one on. You couldn't have two.
You can't have two at the same time.
So effectively, this overcomes that.
You can
Hopefully,
have,
because of ease of management.
you've got two buttons, and the reason why they give us two is so firstly you can change sound very quickly.
But then the next question, maybe I'm coming to that one. You don't want an H registration. You want one at the end of the alphabet.
Yes. So
So how do you get there quickly?
I just want to show you one quick thing, and then we'll show you how to
Yeah.
actually choose the voice. So at the moment there's a harmonica in that one and bells in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We press them two together,
Yes.
we get both sounds
Both sides,
together.
yes.
Harmonica and the bells there. But there's one flashing.
Yes.
And what that tells us is that if we press lower now, it will take that one and keep it up here, and that one, and put it down there. So it splits them up.
Run through it again.
Yeah. So when you put two voices on together,
Mm.
harmonica and bells for example,
Mm.
if they're just playing on the upper keyboard,
Yes.
they come together.
Right.
If they're just playing on the lower keyboard, they come
Yes.
together. But if you tell it to put it on both at the same time,
Yes.
it takes one of them and puts them up here, and takes the second one and puts it down
And
there.
presumably in the order harmonica.
The one that's flashing is the one that gets put on the lower.
Right.
And the way it's reason why that one's flashing is because I press that and then press that one.
Yeah.
If I did it the other way around,
And
it'd then be bells and then harmonica.
That's
So,
clever.
Little system there. Just now, that's why a lot of people ask, well, why is one flashing? It's because it's just to be able to differentiate between the two voices.
Right. And if you press the lower right,
Yep.
it
The
will-
flashing one goes to the split.
Yes. And what's down here?
Whatever would
Whatever would be
be
up there.
from there.
Right. I think I can work that
So
out.
there's lots of scope and variation in those buttons. And just while we're talking about it, these work exactly the same way.
Yeah.
The French one can be on the upper keyboard, can be on the down here. Now you don't have the option to put the solo over the whole of the lower keyboard. It can only go in a split because it's monophonic. There's not much point having a monophonic voice for your left hand.
Yeah.
So again, if you have both on, it will be on both keyboards. But if I press two buttons together, the whistle's up
whistle will be
here
on
and the French one's down there.
So the whistle, I thought the flashing one was a lower keyboard.
Yep. Well, the French horn is on number one there, so that's the one that's down there. The French horn's in number one,
Yes.
whistle's in number two.
Ah, because you got it on lower. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And petrol is down below. Yes. Okay.
It takes a little
No,
while
sorry,
to get your head
hang
around
on.
that. Yeah.
Do that again.
So you've got French horn up here,
Yes.
or whistle,
Right.
or I could put whistle on both,
Yes.
or French horn on both. If I press them together, whichever one is flashing, which is the one I touch second, goes to the lower.
So that's the whistle on the lower. And on the top it will be French horn. Yeah, I've got that. I might be using the split a bit more now.
So essentially, actually, you can have four of those voices playing at once. In fact, you could have all four of them on the upper. Lovely sound.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I'm with that.
And so, the very important question.
So you could have those four on the upper,
Yeah.
plus all the tabs.
all the tabs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big sound.
Isn't it?
But But the important question is, how do I change these from being harmonica, bells, French horn and whistle? So we have the old-fashioned way. We still have our lovingly crafted system that means that when you press that button, it comes up here, same as the Prestige, and you can scroll.
Right.
And you can hold down and it'll scroll a bit faster, but not
fantastically
fast.
Right.
Interestingly, actually, just while we're going through that list, there's lots of extra pipe organ sounds in there as well.
I did find that out.
Yeah, that have all.
But is that a lot more than if we go to was it the more
this Genius over here? No.
Or the more one
no,
where we've got the extra.
There you go. This
cool.
is the thing of getting your mind separated. These are presets. A preset is using those sounds.
Yes.
These are all the ingredients.
Yes.
A preset is the recipe, as it were. So we're now looking at the ingredients. So these kind of voices are used by those presets. This is when we want to use all the ingredients ourselves. So they're all there. And of course you could have two of those on at once if you spent ages scrolling between them.
I've done that before now.
But the quicker way of choosing the voices is to use a new button called Quick Picks.
Yes.
Now we hit that.
Quick picks. Yes,
Quick Picks. And the screen pops up here. That more or less duplicates the buttons that we had before that were missing.
Yes.
The piano, accordion vibes,
Right.
Strings ooh and ah. And these are now shortcuts to voices in that Genius bank. So if you want to go to the piano quickly, you touch piano there, and then you press the Genius button where you want it to go. So if you want it in that one, hit that, and that's gone straight to piano.
And then you can use the scroll button to see
and
the
then you can
different
scroll
form.
to go through. That's it.
I reckon the next development on this will be having a bank of 5 like the Yamaha on the screen coming up.
Yeah, they're getting there slowly. As I say, this means I can go straight to the accordion section. I mean, of course, if they haven't covered every single sound in that list, but at least now you can get to the A's very quickly.
But if you wanted flutes,
yeah, if you go to next, it's the second page, which are all more
jazz flute as before, and then you can you can scroll. So how many of those pages have you got?
There's 3 of them.
3 of them. Oh, that's quite clever.
So you've now got these shortcuts to jump up and down that list. So rather than having to scroll through the list, if you want to get straight to a piano, of course, if the voice isn't on there, say you're looking for panpipes,
yes,
it's common sense if you then go just to the pianos and scroll from there, you can then
you get a pen, yes.
find the panpipes that way. So they haven't covered every single voice variation, but all the main ones are there.
I suppose the next thing I'm going to be asking you, or you're coming at the end, is how one saves it on the USB, and where it is exactly saved.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So
And whether or not you can write a brief note what it is.
Yep.
You can.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm ahead of myself.
So if say you want to play the accordion in that button, you just hit that button. So you're just pressing the button where you want the voice to go.
Yes.
But the order is to select the voice first, then hit
the
the Genius.
Yes, I was doing it the other way around before.
Well, that way around is fine for when you're scrolling,
Yeah.
because you press it to then bring up the list to scroll.
Yeah.
But this way round is the quicker way.
Yeah,
with the
you're
new
getting.
system.
I can see that.
And to get that list up there, you press Quick Picks. And they stay up there. So that way we can choose sounds to go in all these 4 buttons. We can play those sounds up here, down there.
Right.
You can mix those in with all the tabs, with the Theatre Genius tabs as well, and the Lower Genius voicing as well. However, there are 2 extra Genius buttons. We've got 4 there, but there's 2 extra ones. There's one here for the upper keyboard. There. And there's one there for the lower keyboard.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
And so we can actually put any of the voicing into one of these tabs as well.
Right.
So if you want a piano, you can actually get a piano from the tabs. is like having a bonus one of these buttons.
So you press that one, then that comes up there.
Well, you can either do it this way around. You can choose a voice from the quick picks, vibes, the tab.
Well, just say we haven't got that on the screen.
Yep. You could just hit that tab, just the same as you used to do on the Prestige, and the sound comes up, which is vibes, and you can then.
Yeah, you've got to go through it. So, in fact, in most cases, with the right-hand tab, you then go to quick.
You would use quick picks as
yes.
This works exactly. This could be literally Orchestral Genius number 3.
Yes.
The only difference is it's there as a tab, and it's fixed to the upper keyboard.
Yeah.
Likewise, there's one for the lower.
Yeah. That's very
It's
nice.
fixed for low manual. So if you want to put a piano on the left hand very quickly, you can actually just pick it up from there, put it to that, and that's put the tabs on, turn all the other stuff off so you're not hearing it all. Touch sensitive, which is a popular thing for pianos, there's a button there.
Oh.
That makes it
Dynamic. Did the other one have that?
Yep.
Oh, no. Does that work also with organ sounds?
because organs actually aren't touch sensitive.
Well, that's why I asked the question.
So it's been relevant up until now. Now we're playing orchestral voicing, especially with things like the piano. It's nice to
So one could rarely have that on permanently.
Then it only affects when you're playing the orchestral voice.
Which is really logical. So there's very little point in not having it on.
Well, unless you're somebody who, a lot of organists never played piano, so they don't hit the keys very hard, so they would put the piano sound on and not be able to hear it.
Yeah, but if you're playing, if you've got an organ, a church organ registration, then it wouldn't be working.
No, but if you've got a piano on, it would be.
Yeah.
And say some people just don't hit the keys hard enough for it to be effective. Which is why they put it there as a button, so you have a choice.
That's very useful.
It's quite nice if you're sort of doing sort of light jazz kind of
Going back to Atelier, I had that. Nobody didn't have that for
No,
some
it's just nice so you can have a bit of trumpet there, bit of piano there. Fiddle.
Now, this is maybe the right time to say, I know you've got the Genius registration there.
Yeah.
But is there a screen which will tell you all the registrations that you've got set?
When you say registrations, this is a bit of the sort of the language thing. This is showing you the voices which are on.
On the Genius.
So that's telling you
Yeah,
the sounds.
but
which
if
you've
you
got.
wanted to know precisely what voices are set on the organ,
That's what you look at.
but that doesn't tell you everything, does it?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, obviously you need to look at the tabs to see what tabs are on.
But if I go back to Atelier, I could press the button on the right of the screen, and it will tell me in 6 boxes, I think, the various different registrations. Now, how do you get there?
Genius tab there. In a glance, that tells you what's in all the Genius buttons.
And if you press, is the screen touch sensitive for?
If you wanted to change a particular one, you can touch and scroll that one on its
Yeah,
own.
that's what I was getting at. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's fine, because that's very useful. So to get that, you press Genius.
On the main screen.
That's very useful because if I use a pre-recorded registration,
You can see how it's done.
then that is what I was wanting.
Yeah.
Now did the other one do that?
One of the benefits again of having the double-sized screen.
Well, this is what this is one of the things
As we were saying on the phone, is that the Prestige great organ. On this one they kind of were able to make things easier by virtue of having the bigger screens and this new quick pick system and so forth. Later on,
what's that 205?
oh, that's the time, which is wrong. 1:21.
Yeah.
There we go. If you touch the clock,
Yes.
that's where you can set the time.
Right.
You can also set it so that it will wake you up in the morning if you want. There's an alarm clock.
I'm not going to sleep by it.
And there's an off time that if you leave the organ for a certain length of time, it will turn itself off.
I suppose that's an idea, isn't it?
30
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't got that turned on at the moment. Later on, not necessarily now because there's a lot there to play with, but at a later stage you always have the option to do what they call editing,
Yes.
which means you can change virtually all the characteristics of a voice.
Right.
So you can change its vibrato, its octave, it's what they call the envelope, which is the way.
Well,
it
I've got
comes
that on
and
the
goes
Yamaha,
out. Yeah.
but I can't.
Yeah.
I can't see myself using it.
It's just to show that it is there, and you've got all the other options for adjusting pan and EQs and all this kind of thing. So it depends on what kind of level you want to get into. And some people love the idea that they can then go into the piano and change the attack that's on the piano. It's funny actually. There's a balance actually between the people who really get into that kind of thing. Don't tend to spend much time playing the keys.
Well, I think if you've got a good acoustic piano, you play it as per the piano is set up. You've got no way of altering the Steinway or the Beckstein or whatever.
Organists, though, have always grown up with the option to tweak and change, because it's been pianists, yes, have to accept the piano as the piano.
I think I come from a piano background.
But organists have always had the option to fiddle and change and adjust and so forth.
Well, personally, I think there are enough tweaks on the system.
Well, it's kind of like the piano sound that Lowrey have set up is what Lowrey feel is the best piano sound they could give you. But if you feel that you want it to be different, you've got the option. It's a bit like the whole drawbar thing, is that they put it there so that people know they can do it, but they're probably not ever going to do it.
I assume if one screws through the piano thing, you get jazz piano as well as concert piano.
Also, actually, there is an element actually when we do our registrations for you that you load in from the stick, we have actually used all that stuff to tweak and edit the voices. So we have actually done some changing of the sounds. So even if you never do it, that is used.
Because I'm hearing voices, I thought I'd cut out the extra voices.
Now, just finally, actually, from the point of view of choosing voices, there is the section over there for the pedals.
Yeah.
So of course we've got a 16 and 8 foot bass. We've got a nice deep one. Bass sustain. This has again another little subtle feature. Bass sustain obviously makes the pedals sustain and carry on. If you take the bass sustain off, the pedals become polyphonic.
Yes.
So if the sustain's on, they're monophonic, only one at a time.
Yes.
Take the sustain off, they become like a church organ, and you can now press
Yes.
several pedals at once.
So what's your recommendation normally for using it?
If you're playing classical, actually, if you're playing a piece of music that requires two pedals on at the same time,
but for light music, you normally
leave it on.
sustain.
Yeah, because it softens the bass. So you have two normal organ bass tones, an ensemble bass, which is a bowed bass like a string bass, diaphone, which is reed bass, and a pedal genius tab, which can play any sound in the genius list.
So so no doubt you can have a violin playing down there, totally out of its normal range.
And you can choose the voice in the same way. You can either touch it and then scroll,
Yes.
or go to quick picks and take piano and put it in the pedal genius. Pedal. Oh, you put a trumpet down there. Or you can touch the scroll and go through different trumpets. Or while we're in the T's, we could maybe find the timpanis.
It's very,
Even a timpani roll.
very versatile, isn't it?
Now, when you're putting all of that together, of course, the other thing you want to do is balance it all.
Mm.
So the orchestral section has its own volume.
Mm.
The solo section has its own volume. The lower manual has its own volume.
Yes.
And the bass has its own volume. And as you already know, you can move those up and down and lock them. There are also, via the features button, the option to go through and adjust all of these volumes individually, should you so want to.
Do it that way rather than separate.
Well, this is a general volume for the orchestral section,
Yes.
whereas these are volumes for the individual buttons.
Oh, I see.
So if you want to get really into them and do more subtle
yes,
balancing.
I quite often did that on the solo ones to take 100% on the solo. I used to find well, to take the one through there was too strong, and I used to. That's on the dual keyboard. I used to reduce it, say, to 85%.
Yeah, you could do the same one here if you want to.
Yeah.
Just to show you that facility is available. But of course, once you've done all of that, so you spent hours and hours and hours lovingly crafting your own sound, and before you turn the organ off, which means you're going to lose it, you want to have a means of saving that.
Right.
The same way as if you spent ages typing something out on the computer, you wouldn't turn the computer off without saving it. So once you have found a sound that you like, you can...
Sorry, I'm just making him a cup of tea. Can I make anybody anything?
Oh no, I'm fine, thank you.
You're
I'm
right.
okay.
Tony, would you like a cup of coffee and a sandwich or something?
That's perfect. I was just hoping you'd come up with that
And
offer.
you're all right for food, are you?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah?
Right.
So the same way as you wouldn't walk away from the computer without saving what you've spent ages typing out, if you've made nice sounds on here, you wouldn't turn it off without saving them first.
Right.
It's funny actually, in the olden days we used to have to write everything down. You know, once you found a nice sound, you'd sit there and write it all out. Or we even had customers who, once they found a nice sound, that's how they left everything.
Yeah. There's no point in having such a good instrument.
You wouldn't, they found a nice sound, they're happy with that, they're going to leave it. Of course, they get caught out when somebody comes along and does some dusting, and they move all the buttons around for them. We're a bit more high tech than that. We actually have a means of getting the organ to remember what we've done, and it's ever so simple, Larry. If you want to memorise something, let me tell you what to memorise. So you start off by pressing the red memorise button, and you're given 5 banks, and each bank can have 10 sounds.
Right.
So you need to tell the organ 2 bits of information: which bank and which number. So you can press A, number 1.
Right.
On the screen there, it tells you what it's doing, memorising to A1.
Yes.
And this next bit for you is irrelevant because we have an option of remembering a style, but you're not using a style, so it doesn't matter. And remembering it with transpose, we don't use transpose, so you don't need to worry about those. So once you're happy with that, you turn memorise off, and that's it. It's now in A1. So whatever sound we had on.
You've now lost the factory set thing, but on the other hand, you've got it back over there.
That's right. That's the benefit on this one. On the older one,
if we press that and that,
that's the sound we just saved.
It's got called Sweet Lowrey.
Now, that's what I said. What's on that screen is up to what somebody's typed in. The organ can't come up with a name for your registration.
So, but you can now type it in.
So you now type it in. So if you press the forward button here, you've now got a wonderful system whereby you can move the cursor key left and right. It's my phone making all that noise. And choose uppercase, lowercase, pluck a little label gun.
Oh yeah.
And find the letters. space, we'll get rid of whatever's in there. So you go test Lowrey, for example.
So if you want to, can we go back there again? How do you save it?
It's not safe. Once I've changed it, that's how it is. See,
If you then want to, if you press forward there, is that right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you get it to the cursor to the end?
Yeah.
If you hold it down, does it? It
no,
doesn't.
you've got to do one at a time. That's it.
And then is there a way of deleting what you've got there?
Yeah. I mean, what you can do is you can actually replace what's there with a space.
Yeah, but you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
You can't go to the end as you can on a
Backspace,
computer.
no.
Right. Okay.
So we call that one test, and so that's what that one's now called.
And if you want to get rid of it, we just press reset.
Nope.
Yeah.
Once you've stored something in there, it's in there until you put something else over the top of it. Reset, as we said, just puts the panel back to normal. Doesn't erase the memory of the organ.
Oh, I see.
Otherwise, you lose all your hard work every time you press reset. So you can press reset. That puts the organ back to how it is when you first turn it on.
But if you want to delete the sound,
Well, that's gone back to normal. Now, if you don't want to use that sound,
just like
it doesn't do it hard. It's still there.
A1. If you want to just delete the sound and have nothing there.
Well, to be honest, there's no point in that. There's always something there.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to use that sound, just don't press it.
I was just thinking from a management point of view that you say, oh, I don't like that. Therefore, get shot of it, but you've got nothing to replace it with.
That's what I'm going to say. There always has to be something there. So you'd have to actually set up a sound with nothing on it to then store in there. So you might as well just replace it with a sound that you do like. There's no point replacing it with nothing, with a blank. You don't need to delete them, as it were, if you don't want to use it.
The only way I can see I can overcome that one, so I don't like it, is to go on to this and then just put XXX in it.
Well, no, well,
which indicates I don't like it.
Yeah, but if you don't like it, don't choose it.
I might have.
But say we don't like what's in test, for example. Yes. All you would do is next time you've made your next nice sound, put it over the top.
Well, I accept that.
Yeah.
But one might get to a stage where you haven't got time to put something over the top, and if you don't somehow either get rid of it or change the title to XXX, which means you don't like it, then next time you go on the screen or onto that bank, you know I don't like that one, and you put your new sound there.
Yeah,
you see what I'm getting at?
I mean, you can do whatever works for you in terms of.
It just gets down the management side of it. I'm with that.
I mean, a lot of people actually still prefer just to have a bit of paper where they write down what they've put in each one, just so they can refer to it.
Well,
But you
I
can do
can
it
see
via the
myself
screen.
building up my favourite.
So by doing that, you are saving your favourite sounds in the organ. But again, the thing that you've got to be a bit careful of, a bit like computers, is that yes, you've saved it, but it's best to have a backup.
Yes.
In case they get lost, or you make a mistake.
Yes.
So, for example, you go, oh, okay, let's memorise that in A2. Oh, wait, oh no, I didn't want to lose what was in A2. Or sorry. So you make a mistake. So you want a means of actually saving those so that you can come back to them and reproduce them. And that's where the USB stick comes in.
Right.
So you have a USB stick in there. Ta-da! Which I'll leave you with. And so to get to that, we press USB. And there are lots of options, but we're only really ever going to use two for the USB, saving and loading.
Well, how about knowing if there's enough memory in it?
Oh, there's plenty.
Are you saying you'll never ever?
It has the one USB stick has space for 250 banks of 50.
Is that all types of USB sticks?
Yeah, the organ only addresses a certain amount of memory.
I mean, I got this one. Let's see, this people sent to me. Haven't used it. Will that be the same memory?
Yep. Yeah, it's not a branded stick, so it doesn't say on it what it is. But essentially, ever since they started making sticks, the organs actually.
Well, I mean, I just think, could that not be for an ordinary computer?
Oh yeah, they are. They're only USB sticks.
So the memory is going to be the same, you reckon?
Well, no, the memory capacity is the same, but the organ only uses a tiny amount of it. The amount of data an organ generates is tiny.
So there's no way you think I could ever fill it up?
Unless you were conscientious about sitting here for the next... Basically, the organ gives you, on any size of stick, 250 spaces.
Right.
Each space can hold a bank of 50 registrations.
So the organ, what, say again?
So when we go to save,
Yes.
say we just imagine we've spent ages and ages and we've put 50 sounds in here.
Oh, that's 250, yes, I'm with you. Yes.
No, 50 in there, yeah.
Yes.
Now, it doesn't matter if you haven't filled up all 50 because there's always things in there.
Yes.
But just imagine we've had, or you're only halfway through
Yeah.
doing it, whatever point you want to save them. The organ will always save all 50. So you don't have to tell it, I want to save A1 and I want to save B3. It will save A1 to 10, B1 to 10, C1 to 10, all of them as a big lump.
And these can't be changed at all, general presets?
They're the sounds we're
Yeah,
putting.
but
The factory ones,
yes,
they can never be changed.
okay,
now.
fine.
So you can't lose them. So don't worry that they're going to delete
Right.
them or
Yes, I'm with that, I'm 50 with that.
So you put your 50 in here.
Mhm.
You choose save.
Mhm.
The organ goes away and has a look at the stick, and it shows you what's on the stick already.
Yeah.
Well, this is the stick that I bought that's got the touch of gold on it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are filled up, but 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way up to 250 are all blank.
Right.
Each one of those white blocks will store all 50 sounds.
Yeah.
So say I can't remember 50 times 250.
1.25 million.
Yeah. So that's more or less enough for most people. So we would obviously be easier just to go back to starting at, let's say, number 6, or you could say leave a bit of a gap and start at number 10. You just touch where you want to save it, number 10, and with our same system again, we can type in the name.
Well, moving on from there now, bearing in mind you're in the business of sometimes producing additional ones of these, is there a way of putting what you produced in another stick onto this existing stick?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but essentially you can kind of bounce them into the organ. So, for example, if you had something on that stick you wanted to put on that stick.
No, but I was thinking if you had a new stick of,
Yep.
goodness knows
That's
how
what I'm
many,
saying,
of the
yes.
total stick.
So, say we sent you a brand new stick with
Yes.
some new sounds on it,
Yes.
and you wanted to put them on that stick.
Mhm.
Essentially, you'd load them into the organ, then
Mhm.
take that stick out, put the other stick in, and save them onto that stick.
And the whole thing would be transferred.
Well, all 50 sounds, yes.
That's very
You do
easy.
one block at 50 at a time. So I'm saving them now. Let's just call them Trevor quickly.
So you just hope that not too many of your customers know another person with a Lowrey, otherwise your copyright might be breached.
Well, yeah, there's not much we can do about that, to be honest.
Well, I don't know anybody.
There we go, Trevor.
I suspect
save.
most of your people won't know many other Lowrey organists.
Well, it depends. I mean, it's always a funny thing about the element of copying things is that if you've paid £50 for something, why would you want to give somebody else a free copy of it? I never quite understood that. So if
I can go along with that.
it only applies if somebody has come across a free copy, and so they're going to pass on a free copy because it didn't cost them anything. But if you've actually bought it, it's like if you bought a CD or something, why would you then make a copy free of charge for somebody else? Because you think,
No, it's very good because it means, from a management point of view, one can get it all one stick. But secondly, from a bit like a computer, from a backup point of view, I could put all of that on another stick. So if it somehow was corrupted or I lost it, then I'm not up the Sony.
Also, as these are normal computer USB sticks,
Yes.
so if you do put it in your computer, you can actually copy the files off the stick and keep them on your computer as well. On here is a folder called Lowrey, which is where the organ puts all of the sounds. So if you copied that folder on your computer, you've got a copy of it on the computer as well.
I think all I might do is possibly take a backup, and then got to remember where I put it.
I mean, the key thing is kind of keeping a list so you've written down what you've done.
Yeah.
And also when you do save them to disk, give them a name that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So we've saved our ones there in number 10, so there they are, in number 10.
Thank you, Les.
That's a pleasure. Alright.
Thank you very much.
Do you want that out?
Well, no, if you can go on there.
Well,
It's all right.
don't go knock it.
Doesn't matter.
Well, it does if it gets knocked. Is that alright?
Yep, lovely.
You don't mind the smell of Marmite, do you?
No, not at all.
Good.
No.
Okay.
Thanks. Very good.
Let's do what I have now. I'll just stop the camera then.